Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Say It Out Loud GG episode. Today we have a special guest in the house, but before we get into that, I want to thank our sponsored Anointing newsletter, Chris Collins and La Cienciani Style for sponsoring this podcast. Thank you very much. And finally, we get Giselle Quintanilla in the house, the author of The Pain Plan. You see sticky notes, such a book. I mean, hands down, if you have not purchased this book, you have to have it. It doesn't matter what you have gone through. I think you could relate to everybody in any situation in their life. It doesn't have to be like divorce, separation. It could be anybody going through any struggles in life. Let me tell you, when I tell you I read this book and I was in this book living everything, I tell you, it's Giselle. I'm just going to say your name. You are an inspiration. You are a woman of God. I always say that your spirituality always transcends, like you walk around with the light within yourself, and I think I told you that the second we met.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just give you the floor a couple seconds so you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. First of all, you're not gonna have me crying on this your platform. Thank you so much. I'm Giselle Quintanilla. And I'm a mom of three, right? I would say I'm a God girl. I love God, he is my compass 100%. I'm a mom. I am the owner of Ready Writer Services LLC. So I help people write their books, publish their books. And I'm an author and speaker myself. And that is a blessing. I really do consider it an honor because I'll be honest, this girl grew up in Paterson, New Jersey, and she never would have thought, right, that she would be here. So, it is an honor really to be able to just serve God in all the spaces that I get to do that in. And so that's me. I'm in South Jersey. I just love what I do. I love helping people. I love women like you, powerhouses. That is my jam. I love it because it fuels me. It makes me better to be around people like you. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's an honor to have you. I think we have had a couple meetings together anyway, get togethers where you have interviewed me. So this is your home. This is like your second home. So I just wanted to bring you in this podcast, to bring you to my audience. And today is going to be in this podcast about you, about so what message you want to leave this audience, what message you want to bring besides this amazing book that I feel that everybody should have in their home. Once again, I want to ask 10 questions, and of course, you know me, I'm a magazine owner, so I'm a journalist here, but there's a couple questions that I want to know. Okay, can you tell us what inspired or what inspiration was behind writing this book? Like, what inspired you? What was the second or that moment that you said, whatever I lived, I'm not going to keep it no more? Like, what
Yeah.
was that?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great question. So it was, believe it or not, Gigi, this is so amazing. It was actually while I was in my separation. Like I still hadn't been divorced yet. It was when I remember when God released me. I was still separated, but when he released me from my marriage and I was just going through all the hurt and the pain of what happened in in my relationship. And I remember just being like, okay, God, like I know this is not the way that he graced me, which you read in the book, the way he
Mm-hmm.
graced me to deal with the stuff I dealt with. It was like, God, that can only be you. And if you are gracing me in this way, because you're not a respecter of persons, which means what he does for one, he'll do for the other in principle, I knew that what I was going through wasn't just for me and I couldn't keep it. And for me, Gigi, it was like a way, because my I talk about my parents and how they split. So, but for me, it was almost like I get to do this differently. And I get to
Mm,
show other people that you don't have to do divorce and separation messy and ugly and hurtful toward, and hurting your children. You don't have to do it that way. And so, that's the moment where I said, okay, I know you want me to share this with other people who are going through this. And I wasn't sure it was a book. I had that kind of inkling, but I wasn't really 100%. But I knew it would be, but I knew that it wasn't going to be right away. So like I knew
okay.
it, right? I knew it, and now we're talking about, this is probably October of 2020. We're in the
Okay.
pandemic, October of 2020. I knew it, but I was like, but there's no way I'm writing it right away, because there's still work to be done. And so,
Absolutely.
so I did know it in October 2020. I didn't actually though get to write until October of last year. 3 years, 3 years, because
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, that was.
Wow. And now that you mention that and you say that, there's a part in the book that you clearly say that when your parents separated, it was the best thing that happened to you. So, and the fact that when you got separated, that was far from what was happening, right? So it
Yeah,
was the total opposite. So to all those people out there that has lived that version of having two parents and grateful that they separated, like the best thing, that because I feel like that, right? As a child, that Gigi felt like that. Like, oh, like my mom leaving my dad was the best thing she ever did. And you felt that way. So,
yeah.
what would you say would be the difference and the key to how you live that to how your kids are living that? Because that's breaking generational cycles there.
Yeah, yeah, that was huge because my parents, and we had this conversation, so they're cool. My parents, when they were together, they were toxic. Like they were always fighting. It was very, for me as an 11-year-old girl, some of the stuff that I witnessed and heard, they should never happen. So when I say like that was the best thing, it really was a sigh of relief for me. With my kids, the difference was we as parents, we were phenomenal parents. Those
Mm-hmm.
kids weren't going to miss a beat academically, personally, whatever they needed, we were on it. We just weren't good to each other. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? We were great
Mm-hmm.
parents, just not a great couple. And so what I wanted though, because here's what happens, Gigi. When you experience hurt, it don't matter how good you are, you can turn bad real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When you experience
Oh,
hurt,
absolutely.
you could be the listen, you could be the best person, love Jesus, pray, like all of the stuff. But if you are hurt, something happens where you think you justify now your actions, and you can turn into somebody you're not because of
Mm-hmm.
the hurt. And what
Absolutely.
what I wanted to make sure was that what I experienced after my parents got separated was not going to be my kids' experience.
Mm.
So I wasn't going to let this hurt turn me into somebody I'm not, turn me into what I lived, what the parents I had as a
Mhm.
child. That wasn't going to happen. So that was the difference for me, was here's what we're not going to do. And I say it in the book, right? Here's what we not
Yeah.
going to do. So I'm
Yeah.
very clear cut.
So absolutely. And that's why I say, guys, this is a book that talks about that. It just, you pinpoint every part of what life is, cycles, what tradition is, what were your growing up. I mean, you incorporated all that into this book. And so when you say plan, you absolutely executed that word,
Thank you.
execute it to the maximum. With that, I'm going to do the follow-up question. How do you balance everything by being a mama entrepreneur and an author, right?
Yeah.
Today, like today, because before, if you want to know, here's the book, so look at her story. But today, you know Giselle, how do you balance that? How do you balance being a single mom, right,
Yep.
single parent, right? Co-parenting, but a single mom,
Correct.
entrepreneur, and an author.
Yeah, that's a great question too, because what is interesting is, God is so perfect in seasons and times, right? And I love that because it was almost as if everything was a setup for now this season of my life where my children are a little older. And so they are a little self efficient. They can do their own thing. Like the other day, my daughter cooked dinner, bless her heart, so because I was like, guys, right? And
Was
so,
it good?
oh, it was amazing. Oh, girlfriend can cook. She could throw down.
Ooh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. But so I had a meeting. I had meetings in the evening and she was like, I'll cook. And she did that. So I'm in a season, Gigi, where I can, say, hey guys, I need you to do XYZ, and they're good with it. But I still check in. I'm still like, hey, whatever, this has to get done, that has to get done. Like we still are, is it easy? Absolutely not. It's not, it is not easy. But when you're graced for this season, I always say when there are single parents, there's a, what I've learned, and my pastor has definitely advised me, is single parents they have a different grace that God gives. And God gives them that energy, that stamina, where I know I have to do a certain thing, so I get it done by this time. And my meetings, I'm very intentional with my business about making sure that those meetings are either later in the evening and we have nothing going on, or they're a day where hey, I have this day off. And then if I have a day off, am I doing something with them, because that's important too. We have family time, we do movies. So it's making sure that I'm intentional in maximizing my time. And they come first. That's my first ministry. My kids
Mm.
come first, 100%. So if something happens and I have to postpone a meeting or cancel a meeting, that's what happens, because I have to make sure that they are good first. And so, that's my first ministry. And that's not to say every now and then I don't double book myself and I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally did that last month. I scheduled a class. This was the best. I scheduled a live class that I was supposed to facilitate on my daughter's graduation day. I don't know what I was thinking. I was like, and I kept thinking that, looking at the date, going, no, I can do it. I can do it. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that's her graduation day. What am I thinking? It worked out. It did work out because I actually did. I ended up pre-recording it. So everybody was good. And it was really a great class. So that's a blessing to me. But that's where God's grace shows up, where it's like,
Mhm.
let's work it out. We're going to work it out this way.
Yes.
And everything worked out. So to kind of sum up the answer, I guess it's, it is being intentional with my time. I love that they are such a team and a unit. My kids really have been a unit ever since they were little. And so they really do a good job of also supporting each other, but then, collectively making sure that there's always that time for them.
Mm. And that's amazing. That is very important. So ladies, you're hearing out there, listen and take notes.
Yeah.
What can you expect the readers to find when they're reading this? So if you could pinpoint right now exactly and say, hey, listen, in my book you could find ba ba ba. What do you want to tell those readers? What can they discover and find in your book?
Oh, absolutely. I could tell you, in my book and in the pain plan, you can absolutely find practical tools to dealing with emotional hurt. Like you will absolutely find not just information, right? So books give information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So books give knowledge, right? Um, but when you can apply the knowledge, that's where the power lies, right? The power is really in the application of the knowledge.
Absolutely.
And
Yes.
so I give knowledge, but that can be applied. Because when knowledge isn't applied, it's just information. That's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So all you're doing is reading, you're getting info, great, right? But when you can say, hey, listen, this is what I did, this is what you can do, this is what this is how to face a trigger, right? I love that part about triggers because that was big for
Mm-hmm.
me. But like, so this is what you do, and you can apply it, and it's going to work because you're doing the work. It works when you do the work.
Hmm. And what would you say to those out there who struggle with that, with applying these tools? Like you said, a book without applying that is just information.
Right.
So if you, and I know because I read the book and I could see where that transformation did. So I know the key because I read it.
Okay.
So if you could say, and I want you to, I want us to just connect right now, right?
Yeah.
So, how did you, I know how, but how did you tell the audience, how did you connect that and was able to apply that? Because there were many nights, many days you're crying, you're pouring, but there was this special thing that you did that transformed this story into just this whole wow. Yeah, that is the way you do it because no matter what happens in your life, this is the key to applying. What is that?
I'm cracking up because I'm like, oh my gosh, let me answer this question right. No,
No, no,
no,
no.
I'm saying,
And it's not a right or wrong question,
no, I
but to
know.
you, it was like, and I'm going to say it, like to you, it was God.
Yes.
I remember reading and you're talking, but there was a point where you're saying, you was away, you didn't think, you believed, but you wasn't involved, you wasn't having these conversation. And that is very important to know that you, whether when you have the tools,
Yeah.
even if you have the tools and you don't know how to apply them, this is what you did. You
Yeah.
started having conversations.
I started having it. So what's interesting is what is said in the book, what's shared about my situation during the pandemic and what happened wasn't actually the first time. And
Mm,
so what but there's a way to deal with stuff, right? And so what I did when I found out, I went to God. That was the first thing I did, because okay, everybody, I'm from Patterson, New Jersey. I always say I'm hood and I'm holy. Like, I don't, I will lay hands and pray for you after. Like, you know
hmm.
what I'm saying? I can easily, and I think I said this, I can easily be trifling. It don't take
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
It don't take much, right? But I knew this time, Gigi, I knew I couldn't do that. I couldn't go, and react the way I would have reacted years ago. I couldn't do that. There was so many moving parts. There was so much involved. I had three little kids. I couldn't do it. And so I had to go to God. And when I tell you the level of humbling that I did, like humbling myself before him and saying, God, I don't know how, right? If you want me to, and I always say this, I tell this to everybody, when there's infidelity involved, um, it is very easy to just be like, I'm done. That's it.
Hmm.
But you have to be so sensitive
Hmm.
to your relationship, to your marriage, and to God and what He wants to do.
Hmm.
And the best thing my pastor did for me was say, yeah, you could, but you got to pray and make sure it's God releasing you.
And that's why I said that. That is the key. That is the key. And I know that when I was reading this, in everything, because even if you read my story, if you read anybody's story, there's always a part where there is the key, where that flip, right? Where you turn in that key. And if you read every story, the most important part, it's having, and it's not God, it's whatever you believe in, right? Whatever anybody believe in, but believe in that
Yeah.
key to knowing that that conversation with that higher power, where that God, where to me is God,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
you it's God.
Yeah.
It's having
Listen,
that.
and it's a humbling, it's humbling yourself before him. It's
Mm-hmm.
being vulnerable. That's the thing I learned. My biggest lesson was understanding that God wanted my vulnerability. He
Mm-hmm.
wanted me to go to him broken down, distraught, in tears, on the floor of my bedroom, and just be like, God, I need you. I can't do
Mm-hmm.
this by myself. I need you. And
Because he
whatever
was the one who was going to put you back together.
and that's it. And that is
Mm,
100% what he did. That
powerful.
that
Yeah.
part right there, I remember having a conversation with somebody from my church, and I was telling her a little bit of what was going on in that moment. Well, not in the moment, after it happened. And what she said to me was, when you did that and went to God, that's when he honored you.
Mm,
That's when he was like, I got you.
hmm.
And I believe her, because I'm gonna tell you right now, 4 years later, I it's him. He is my compass.
Hmm.
He literally, people are like, how do you, him, God.
Yeah. And the book is a testimony of it. Anybody that reads the book, you're not just listening to Giselle, you're actually reading like it's actually true. And if you see her in real life today and see her, you know it is. So this is the
Yeah,
power behind it.
yeah,
Okay. How important in all this, right? In all the process that you went through and you explain in this book, I also see a shift where you start self caring.
yeah, yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
shift. Talk about that.
Oh my
How, because it's very important. And when I saw and I read that, it was like a shift. It's not, you don't personally say it, but as you're reading, it's like this shift of this self care, right? That
yeah,
you start doing and accomplishing and once again with God and everything, but it's this shift. And that's very important. Can you talk about that a little bit?
yeah, yeah. I think a lot of times, so for me personally, Gigi, I had spent so much time, and I love my kids. My kids, they're everything to me, right? I had spent so much time, making sure they were good, making sure he was good, my ex-husband, right? Make sure he was good. Everybody's good. Everybody else good. And a lot of times, and this is what happened to me, we forget ourselves. We forget who we are. And it's almost like we lose ourselves in the people who are around us that we love so much. And that's not a wrong thing to love them. But I feel like when you love yourself, when you understand the scripture that says, love your neighbors as yourself, you love God and you love your neighbor as you love yourself, right? And so sometimes we think it's love God, love your neighbor, love God, love your neighbor, but we forget ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the scripture says, as you love yourself. So if you can't love yourself, you can't love anybody else. If you don't know how to love
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you won't know how to love anybody else. And I really had to grasp that. And I had to start putting things in place that were going to be good for me so that I can be good for my kids and I can be good for my, spouse or whoever.
Mm-hmm.
I can be good for other people around me. So I got to be good, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And so that was for me a big shift, because I was always so used to, I got to do this for everybody else. And it started being like, no, I have to start doing things for me and taking care of myself and being honest with myself about some stuff, that I wasn't doing, neglecting
Mm-hmm.
myself, right? You got to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then shifting that perspective.
Mm-hmm. And in your book, you don't specifically like point it out, but you could see where that
Yeah.
self care and that importance. And then you start talking about it, like yourself and how it's important to like pour into yourself
Yeah.
pretty much. And it's like, and that is very important, like to do. So another thing that I wanted to ask in this whole process, in this whole plan, in this whole healing journey that you went through,
Yeah.
I'm going to how did your inner child feel knowing that the adult person handled it and went through and created and acknowledged and started healing all this? Because I think that when you wrote this and me reading this, it wasn't just only healing Giselle today or Giselle that went through that, right? That divorce, that problem, that, but it was like almost also reading that you were like healing that child, right? That little girl
Yeah.
that didn't have what you went through, right? That didn't,
Right.
it was more of a toxic more thing. So talk about a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love that question. I love that question because in me changing the trajectory, right, or the generational cycle, right, of what could have happened, um, it was almost like giving my little child a second, like a second wind. like a second
Mm-hmm.
chance. Like here's our second chance, right? To really relive things the way I wish I would have lived them through my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about it is it's a it's liberating. That's what it did
Mm-hmm.
for me. It for my inner
Mm-hmm.
child, it liberated me to be who God created me to be fully,
Mm-hmm.
unapologetically, not scared, not wait, let me watch myself here, let me do that, let me, you know what I mean? No, I am who I am. And the person
Mm-hmm.
who loves me gonna love me. And you
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? And if you don't, great, goodbye. Like I'm good, you
Yes,
know? And
yes.
so there's like this, there's liberating when you are when you finally face, right, the stuff, and you make a decision that what is happening, it's not going to be the same outcome that you lived before. It's going to be different. It's going to look different. And I was determined, Gigi. I was like, no, my divorce is going to be different. And I believe
Mm-hmm.
God honored that, because it was very smooth.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
and so for me, it was like, no, I am gonna do things differently because I know what I went through as a kid. And that was so beautiful because, like I said, it was liberating. It
Mm-hmm.
released the bondage that I had as a child, of like, can I go here? Can I go there? Can I say this to my mom? Can I say this to my dad? That back and forth stuff. My kids didn't have to go through that. And when they,
No.
even
And
though,
even from the beginning, we're not even talking like just towards the divorce. I mean, in the story, you clearly say, and as you read the story, you were great parents. Like that was your biggest focus. That was your number one focus. Like that's one thing you guys didn't need a plan for.
right,
How about
right.
that?
Yeah, and we didn't know what
Yeah,
we were doing either there, but
exactly.
right, but we were so determined though to make
Mm,
sure that our kids were going to be straight no matter what. And so,
mm-hmm,
so for me, that was just, I love it. It was such a, I'm going to say this to anybody who, is facing something, understand that it helps, it does to you. And I know you coach on this. It does help your inner child. It releases them. It finally releases them to just be okay, and release that past. And now just expect this. And now you can move and live forward.
mm-hmm. Yes. And the fact that you also explained going into this marriage, not knowing what marriage was to you. Like these are like what you're leaving is a plan, a solid plan. This book, as you read it, is a solid plan. It's a solid plan because you speak about that. You speak about you didn't even know. You have no knowledge of what it is. You did what traditional
Yes.
tells us to do.
Yep.
So right here, you're it's like breaking. I'm telling you, I read this and I was just like, oh my God, Giselle, it's like this woman, like why this book should be like in the news because it is true. You're not telling a story and you say it clearly there. Like there's a lot of authors out there. There's a lot of people writing books at this time. There's like you're explaining and exactly your word was so powerful and so strong behind this story and exactly you executed the plan.
Plan.
Okay, and just to wrap it up, what what are you looking forward with? Okay, so you made a plan, you wrote a book, you putting it out there, you're targeting anybody that's going through this. So now what is next for Giselle? Now is what is next because this is the healed version of Giselle,
Yeah.
right? This is the one, the woman, the entrepreneur now with this knowledge, now having a plan, understanding the plan.
Yeah.
So, and putting God first, besides, and I know that you are walking in God's path, but when we see this author, this amazing author, which is yourself, what is next for Giselle?
Oh, wow.
I know it's a loaded question.
I know. Well, here's the thing, right? This book for me is a total mission. It is a mission. I am on a mission for people to be healed. I
Mm,
want them to be healed. I want them to walk in their healing because we can't continue to call ourselves something that we're not, right? And put ourselves in roles that we're not ready for because we want to be there, but we are hurting other people because we are still hurt. Hurt people hurt other people. That's not a cute little saying. That's a truth. That's a fact.
Mhm.
And so my mission is I am going to go anywhere and everywhere to make sure people are healed. And they really do the work behind it. And so, for me, it looks a lot like just, having seminars and conferences and talking to women, doing groups. Like I women and men, because actually the book, if you read it, it
Mhm.
does speak to women.
No,
And
it
so,
speaks to both. Yeah.
yeah, so I really want people to understand that there's liberty in healing. There's
Mhm.
freedom in healing. When you do the work, yes, painful, because I even say I didn't want this plan. I hated it.
Mm-mm.
It was
Mhm.
painful.
Yes, she clearly says it, okay, guys? Like, yeah.
It was but there's so much freedom, and
Yes.
it's worth it. Like, it's worth
Yes.
going through the ugly, right? Sometimes we want to be
Mhm.
taken out of it, we want to go around it, we want to avoid it, but it's when you go through it, you are forged in fire, and you're stronger and you're better, and you help other people now. And so, so that's what it is for me. And just, following God's path, because I do want to get married again. So,
Yes, yes, yes. And I one more question to close it out. As a Latina, are you planning to write this book in Spanish?
oh, my mom asked me the same thing, and somebody else asked me that too. So I I have to I want to. I want to. I it was gonna it's gonna be an audio for sure. That's probably gonna come out in a couple of months in audiobook.
Okay.
And in Spanish, yeah, I want to. I'm gonna see about, starting that work, because that's work. Because I would have to see how,
Yes.
we can't just
Yes, yes.
not no Google Translate. We
No,
can't do
you can't Google Translate because our words are, are expressed differently. And
and
one word can mean
right.
10,000 things. So,
Exactly. And I'm very meticulous when it comes to Spanish translation. I'm like, oh, so, that's my heart. I'm praying on it. I really, like I said, I wanted to help everybody. So it might be in Spanish. Yes.
yeah, I think it's just solid. I think that you what your mission is and what you're going to go so far because you're hard in it and you're just walking God's path, and that is the best path. That I think we spoke about it ourselves. Like we're done making decisions our way because that didn't work out for us. So we're just in this path, and so I want to let people know where they could find your book,
Yes.
which is in Amazon. Yes, Amazon. Can they also reach out to you if they want an autograph or
Yeah.
anything like that?
Oh
So
my gosh.
we'll link the information above here, and we'll link the Amazon information in the description. Please go follow her page. Please go. And if you're going through any situation where you feel that you're walking alone, that you're going through this, that you're struggling, separation, even the word grief, because grief is not only just a divorce or separation. This happens with cousins, sisters,
Mhm.
friends, co-workers, anything. This talks about all that in just this book. Like, you don't understand, even when you had to let go of your coworker and understanding all that. It was so amazing, this book, when I tell you guys. So if you don't have a copy, go rush it, go get it, and let's, have, if you haven't subscribe today. And I'm gonna let you just said close this out, and this is your audience, so speak to your audience. What do you want to say? I want to say thank you for just being here.
Oh my goodness, Didi, thank you so much for having me. You have no idea how much I truly admire you, because I've read your book too. And I was just so fascinated with your story. So I just want to say first and give you honor, because I know the work that you do, and I know your heart for people and your heart for, young ladies. And so that to me speaks volumes, because well, you'll see in the book where,
Hmm.
if I had had a Gigi in my life, Lord Jesus, if I had had her in my life, right? Back when I was a teenager, good God, and my life would have been so different. But what I want to say is, as much as I say that, everything we go through, the ugliest, the darkest, the most painful things that we go through, it is temporary. It is passing. It's not forever. And it has a purpose. And I know that's hard to hear when we're in it, because trust me, when I was in it, I was like, I don't want to hear who it's for. I know we don't want to hear that, but that is the hope that we hold on to. And I want to make sure that when you, whoever's viewing this, when the viewers see this, they understand that never ever ever lose that hope. Whatever that hope is that keeps you going, keeps you pressing, and reminds you that this is just temporary, that the emotional pain isn't going to last forever, and that you can be healed and whole. I want that, because the Bible says hope deferred makes the heart sick. Meaning, if you have no hope, you are going to be, it's going to make you sick. And so, hope, if all you have is that, hope in God, if all you have is that, you have everything you need
Yes.
to keep going.
Mm. Ooh. You see why she is a speaker? Anybody want to book the speaker? Here you go. Information linked below. Once again, thank you for our sponsor for anointing, Chris Collins and La Ciencia Listal for sponsoring this program. Until next time.